Trevor, a 30-point win for BYU against Southern Utah. What was the thing that you liked most from BYU's performance on Saturday?
Well, that they got a lot of young guys in the game, and that's important. I mean, you can learn so much about them from practice. They can only learn so much about themselves from practice, but the fact that they actually got into a game in front of a crowd and got to play without a net. In other words, if they made a mistake, that mistake stood. If they did something great, they got cheered. That's an experience that they need to have, and that's I think the greatest takeaway from this. The win is nice, no disrespect to Southern Utah, but I think the young guys getting game experience with the lights on is the most important thing.
Yeah, and BYU didn't sleep on them because they heard you last week mention that. Taysom Hill had 320 passing yards, season high, 2 touchdowns. Tanner Mangum came in the game, was pretty efficient, but BYU unable to get a touchdown in the second half. So do you take anything away from that in the second half there and from quarterback play at all?
Yeah, there's 2 things that I think they'll need to really look at on the tape. Well, 3 actually. 3 turnovers. They'll need to figure that one out. That's not a good thing. But the second half, the fact that they didn't score a touchdown, I think, is concerning. Even though they had a lot of young guys in there, those young guys should have done better, I thought, against Southern Utah. Keep this in mind. They only rushed for 3.9 yards per carry, and if it weren't for Tanner Mangum's accidental scramble for 35 yards, that would have been even lower. And they weren't able to punch it in the second half. And so even I think some of the younger guys really need to watch that tape and learn from it, because they should have been better in the second half. They should have run the ball with more authority, even though they were down to some of their young backs. And I think those young backs did a really good job, especially in catching the ball. And I think that's important, because the running backs being able to catch is a huge part of this offense. El-Bakri and Hall combined for 7 catches, almost 140 yards between them. And so that's good for the future, because that'll be a weapon that BYU will be able to use. So that's another positive coming out of this game, is the catching of the young running backs.
Trevor Matich of ESPN with us on BYU Sports Nation as part of Matich Monday. Let's talk about the quarterback play from BYU, starting with Taysom Hill. What did you think of Taysom Hill's performance on Saturday?
Taysom hit some amazing throws. I mean, that touchdown pass to Kurtz in the right seam. There was a defender right behind Kurtz. Then the end line was right, in front of him. That ball had to drop in perfectly. I don't care if you're playing Southern Utah or the Cleveland Browns. That ball had to drop in because of the nature of the geography, and it did. I mean, that was a fantastic throw by Taysom, and I really liked it that he really had an outstanding game, making some pretty complex throws.
Before this season, the goal for some people was just to get to a bowl game. So BYU gets its 6th win. They get the invite to the Poinsettia Bowl. What did it mean for you to get BYU another bowl invite, their 12th consecutive bowl?
That's impressive. I don't know what the national stats are in terms of how many teams have had 12 consecutive bowl invites. I'm guessing that the number might be a little smaller than people expect. And so for BYU to be in that group shows remarkable consistency, and I think it speaks to the level of recruits that choose the BYU experience and the BYU lifestyle and the BYU honor code that allow them to be a very competitive and very successful program over time. I think that's important. But the other thing is, you look at being able to get bowl eligible now with a couple games to go. They can win 8 games here. And that to me is huge. I mean, it's just absolutely huge that they're bowl eligible this soon. A lot of us expected that they might be fighting for that bowl eligibility when Utah State comes to town in the final regular season game on November 26th. But no, they have it locked up now. And how weird is this, by the way, for BYU? They play Southern Utah. Next week they play UMass. UMass only has 2 wins so far this year. They're not a real juggernaut. Both of those games at home, back-to-back games like that. After this juggernaut, or this schedule, Arizona, Utah, UCLA, West Virginia, who's highly ranked, Toledo, Michigan State, who's still very physical, Mississippi State, who walked all over Texas A&M, and then Boise State. After that kind of a grind, how nice it is to be able to have a couple of teams in a row that BYU is clearly better than, that they can get some of those young guys in.
Trevor Matich with us on BYU Sports Nation. You have experienced San Diego and bowl games as a BYU football player in December. What is it like to be in San Diego for the postseason as a BYU player?
It is pretty much the ultimate because you are in paradise. The weather there is fantastic. You leave the snows of Provo, and you can lounge by the beach, and that by itself is a fantastic reward. And it's also kind of nice that I'm not sure exactly what date the Poinsettia Bowl is this year, but you're home early. You're home for the holidays pretty much. What's the date of the bowl?
December 21st.
Great, yeah. So you're home for Christmas. There's other bowls that'll play around Christmas or after Christmas that other teams go to, and it's nice to go to those bowls. But at the same time, it's nice to get both in, both the bowl and the holiday. So really, it's the best of all worlds from that standpoint. It's a tremendous reward for a season hard fought for BYU.
And the game itself should be compelling. In the next couple of weeks, we'll know who the team is that BYU plays. But BYU has UMass this week. Utah State, a team that's 3-7, kind of blew it at the end against New Mexico there. But how do you think BYU stays motivated after, as you mentioned, a really compelling first 8 games, and then here in November, these are a little easier for the Cougars?
Yeah, it is easier now. They could not afford to let their guard down for 1 minute in the first 2 months of the season, because if they let their guard down, then they had a chance to get blistered by very capable opponents. And it's exhausting mentally and emotionally and physically to keep that kind of urgency. And so I think that's a habit that they've built this year. And so I think their practice will be fine. You'll be able to see how they come out against UMass, how they practice. Because if they come out a little sloppy, you'll know that they really did let their guard down a little bit. If they come out and play with a good deal of precision and don't make a lot of mistakes, then you'll know that they've maintained that. But it's okay to take a little dip. Even the best teams in the country talk about how the hard thing for the coaches is to keep the players with consistent focus and urgency and preparation during the week for the entire body of regular season games. That's hard to do. But BYU has been able to do it so far this year, and I think that's a good thing. We've talked about culture, and we've talked about how more important than the wins and losses this year are how the players compete and how they prepare and how they perform for each other. They've done all those things at a extremely high level. And I think as long as they can maintain that over these next 2 games, then I think that's another culture that will continue going forward that'll help them win in the future.
ESPN's Trevor Matich with us. BYU a 30-point favorite against UMass. And some BYU fans look at that as another opportunity for Tanner Mangum to get in and play. He was 11 for 13 on Saturday against Southern Utah. What did you see from Tanner Mangum in the snaps that he did take that impressed you on Saturday?
Well, he was rusty. There were some nice throws. There were other throws. There were completions, looked good in the box score, but it wasn't necessarily out in front of the receiver where he could catch it in stride and turn up the field. But that's to be expected because practice is one thing, and scout squad kind of hurts you from that standpoint because you're not dealing with the receivers that you'll be dealing with in the game a lot of the times. But he had a couple of those scout squad guys out there he was throwing to as well in the second half. So, it was hit and miss from that standpoint. To me, the fact that he did complete 11 of those 13 attempts is important because even though some of the completions weren't as pretty as others, the fact that the ball wasn't on the ground, the fact that they were complete, and the fact that they went to some of those guys farther down the depth chart tells you that he was able to work through the rest to get some really, really good work in.
Now, the shake-up Saturday was fantastic in college football. I loved it. 2, 3, and 4 lose on the same day for the first time since '85. So who's in your top 4?
Well, my top 4 right now will start with Alabama. I don't think that shakes anybody up. Number 2, I'd say Ohio State. They have obliterated their last 2 opponents. Obliterated them. They're playing well late in the season, and the committee respects that. Now it's a little bit more difficult. The AP has Louisville at number 4 and Clemson at number 5. Both of those teams are 9-1, but I don't like what the AP did there because Louisville lost to Clemson head-to-head. They're in the same conference, same record, but Clemson has the head-to-head win in the AP, put Louisville ahead of Clemson. And I tell you, I don't like it when they dismiss head-to-head results. It's like, yeah, well, you won the game, but we think the other team's better than you, so we'll rank them higher.
Should timing play a factor?
What's that?
Should timing play a factor? Because that's what it looks like the criteria that's being used.
Timing. Timing plays a huge factor, but when this is the AP poll, we'll find out what the committee thinks tomorrow. But guys, to finish answering your question, I would put, just for lack of anything else, right now I'd put probably Clemson at number 3 and Louisville at number 4.
Okay.
But that's shiftable. But from a standpoint of timing, I would suggest this for fans of Louisville and fans of Ohio State. Both of those teams are likely to be in the top 4 when the committee comes out with their rankings tomorrow. And if they are, then Ohio State fans and Louisville fans will think, hey, if we just win out now, we're in. But you're not, because there's an extra factor that gets added to the ranking when the committee does their final ranking, and that is conference championship. Remember the 2 years ago in the first playoff ranking, or the first year of the playoffs, the second to last ranking had TCU at number 3. That next week, the final regular season game, they obliterated Iowa State, just blew them out, and they dropped from 3 to 6. And the reason was Ohio State won a conference championship, and they jumped ahead of them. Baylor was given credit for their tiebreaker conference championship over TCU in the Big 12. They jumped ahead of them. And so TCU fans thought, hey, in the poll system, when you win, you're not supposed to drop. Well, in the playoff system, when you win, you may drop. You may drop a lot because of that conference championship added in at the very end. Well, Ohio State no longer controls their own destiny in the Big Ten. If they win out and beat Michigan, and if Penn State wins out, then Penn State will be the Big Ten East champion and play for the Big Ten championship. Ohio State won't even play for their own championship.
How about that?
That's right. And so they might get trumped by other schools ranked behind them right now, who will add the points for getting a conference championship in that final ranking. And it's the same way with Louisville. Louisville may be in the top 4 in the second to last ranking, and yet drop out, and because conference championships will add points to other teams. And so it's very possible for those two fan bases to get the same kind of whiplash that TCU fan base got in that initial year of college football playoff rankings.
Sports and college football are the only reality television you'll ever need. Trevor, fantastic stuff. Thanks for the time.
We are the Kardashians of athletics.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks, guys.